Okay, hello. I'm Barney Stringer. I'm director of Quad, which is a planning consultancy. We've heard some really lovely schemes in the last presentations. I think I'm set up here to be the bad guy who wants to concrete over your countryside to stimulate a bit of debate. And looking at the time, it's perhaps appropriate. One of my favourite bits of sociological research was a study of magistrates' courts that said you were about 10 times more likely to get convicted if you were heard just before lunch than if you were heard just after lunch. So let's bring it on. I'm going to start off. I'd like to have a show of hands. Can you put your hand up if you live in a brownfield development on, for example, previous industrial land, a home built there? Okay, several. Okay, so that's fairly typical. Majority of us live in homes that were built on farms, whether they were built in Victorian times, built in the 1930s, or whenever. So I'm going to talk about the Greenbelt, and I really want to address three common propositions that we often hear said about the Greenbelt, which I think are all dangerously wrong. So the first one is that we can tackle the housing crisis by concentrating on brownfield land. Second is the Greenbelt is so precious and wonderful that it mustn't be touched. And the third is that building on the Greenbelt would destroy what's great about outer London and suburbia. So let's look at the first one about whether we can deal with this problem with brownfield alone. I think the thing I want to emphasise is just how mind-bogglingly enormous the need is. You know, each one of the dots on this map represents 1,000 homes that we need to build in the next couple of decades. No, and that's just on the existing population projections. The population of England is growing nearly twice as fast as the population of China. And a lot of that growth is happening in London. You know, no British city in the history of these islands has ever grown by 1 million people in a decade until now. And London's done it 2 decades running. It looks like it's going to do it for the next couple of decades too. The need for new homes is absolutely astonishing, and you know we ought to be mobilising almost on a war footing to provide housing faster than the Victorians were doing it. London is rejoining the ranks of the world's mega cities, and we need to behave like that. And this growth is happening whether we like it or not. We can't stop it. The only thing that will stop it is economic disaster. People are coming here for employment, and unless the economy goes badly wrong, people are going to carry on coming here. And we might as well, you know, deal with this and build the homes that we need to make it livable. So, Brownfield. This is Vauxhall Nine Elms, Battersea. Whether you like it or not, there's a lot of homes being built there. You know, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, a couple of tens of thousands of homes being built there. That's great. And there are a number of other sites, and the GLA and others are concentrating on getting as much housing as quickly as possible on these sites. You know, King's Cross, Stratford, Old Oak, and so on. But, you know, tens of thousands of homes, that's a few months' worth of London's need. You know, this is a few months' worth of our need. We cannot, there simply is not mathematically enough brownfield land to deal with the scale of the problem we have. We have to look at outer London and at the Greenbelt. Not exclusively, amongst other things. The brownfield needs to happen, must happen, but it can't solve the solution on its own. So, the second proposition, Greenbelt, it's so wonderful, we must not touch it, mustn't touch an inch of it. Now, these 4 photos are all taken from stories run in the press, stories about how the Greenbelt is under threat and being destroyed. Now, as far as I can work out, actually only one of these 4 pictures is in the Greenbelt. The one on the bottom right is Kew Gardens, for heaven's sake. So the top left, that's the genuine Greenbelt picture there. That also happens to be an area of outstanding natural beauty. That would be well protected against development, even without the Greenbelt. That's a beautiful place, and no one wants to build there. And some bits of the Greenbelt, as we've seen in previous presentations, are really wonderful and really special. But it isn't all like that. This is Greenbelt in London. This is Greenbelt in London. Now, you might say there's some beauty in that, but it's certainly not of the conventional kind. Here's some Greenbelt too. This isn't in London, but it's very near. And here's last example, and this is the one that I think kind of makes me most angry, really. And I want you to share my sense of moral outrage at this picture. This is Greenbelt. It's in London. It's in Zone 4. It's near the tube station. You can walk to the tube from here. You know, we as a nation, you know, can we look Generation Rent in the eye and say, this is what Zone 4 should be used for. This is more important than your home. You know, so the Greenbelt is a very mixed bag. It's also very, very, very big. London's Greenbelt extends about 40 miles from the centre of London in some directions. Covers 67 different local authorities. It's 3 times the size of London itself, London's Greenbelt. And only a tiny, tiny proportion, a few percent of that Greenbelt, London's Greenbelt, is actually within London itself. But that tiny bit of the metropolitan Greenbelt within London still accounts for more than a fifth of all the land in London. In some boroughs, it's more than half of the land. And some of it, as we've seen, is really wonderful. The dark green areas here are areas that are triple SIs or SPAs or nature reserves, other valuable wildlife sites. And you'll see most of the Upper Lee Valley is included here as really valuable wildlife land. No one wants to build on that. Similarly, bits of the Greenbelt are really, really important for the people who live near it. The orange bits here include parks and areas with public access. It includes playing fields and things like that. Really valuable land that's working hard for the people who live near it. And again, you know, this is stuff that should be preserved. But a lot of it isn't. The dark green areas here, the majority of London's Greenbelt is agriculture. A lot of it is arable farming, some livestock farming. A lot of it has no public access whatsoever, or where it does, it's just a footpath fenced across it, but not general public access. The red bits here, that's golf. So 2,500 hectares of Greenbelt within London's boundary are dedicated to golf. That's twice the size of Kensington and Chelsea. No, again, you know, can we tell people there isn't room to build, you know, when this is what we're doing this to ourselves. So Greenbelt is not some uniquely precious and valuable and wonderful land. Some of it is, some of it isn't. It's just land. It's designated as land near the city. That's what it is. And it's a big variety, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So now I want to come to my third proposition. Will building on the Greenbelt destroy everything that we like about suburbia? Now, I'm not going to tell you where this is, and no prizes for guessing, because I don't actually want to talk about this particular place. This is just an example of a type of place that I'm using. So this is a Victorian suburb. This is about 5 square miles of London here. About 100,000 people live here. But just for context, that's about 1 year's worth of London's growth. We need to be building that every year. And you can see there are lots of gaps in there. But if you fill in all the places, all the open spaces that people value and that they use and really need, you know, the playgrounds and the parks, the allotments, the playing fields and school playgrounds, the cemeteries and the nature reserve, it fills in all those gaps. This Victorian suburb is a finished place. There can be rebuilding and development and infill, but it's essentially a finished bit of urban form. And it's a very, very nice place to live. This is a 1930s suburb. It's very different. So this is on the same scale, covers the same area, about 5 square miles, has about half the number of people in it, 50,000 people. So we need to be building 2 of these a year, effectively, to meet London's need. Again, let's add in all those valuable spaces that you need in an urban area to make it livable for a high quality of life. Add those in, and we've still got a lot of gaps, which is odd. This isn't a kind of normal, natural urban form. There's something odd going on here. These are farms. What are they doing here? It's because of the Greenbelt. This grey area is designated as Greenbelt. And I think what we need to understand is that having farms in the middle of an urban area is not a kind of natural edge city condition. It's not part of what makes suburbia how it is. We use the green bits here. These are really important. The grey bits are hardly used relative to that. This is effectively a picture of an unfinished bit of urban landscape. You know, in the 1930s, the suburbia was developing, and then suddenly the Greenbelt was imposed, and we froze these places in this condition. You know, this is a state of arrested development with missing bits of urban form. And we need to look at this again and not say this is normal. We've become so used to the idea of these fragmented condition of the sort of edge of the city, of these spaces between communities. And it was referred to earlier as a wound on those communities. And I like that image because these could be places, you know. Where we are now, Greenwich, this used to be fields. We can do great things with fields, you know. That is not the best use of that land in one of the world's greatest cities. And, you know, this farm, the cows on that farm are 25 minutes by train from central London, you know. Again, I want you to share my moral outrage on this, because this really, really is ridiculous. So my message overall is, you know, we mustn't concrete over the whole of the Greenbelt. It's huge, but there are little bits of it that could, a tiny proportion of it, could help contribute towards solving an absolutely disastrous housing crisis that is building and building and building. Outer London is effectively unfinished because of the Greenbelt. And 60 years on, it's time that we get on with it. There you go.